All right, let's dive in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into navigating a new leadership role and leading organizational change.
Yo, this is a good one.
It is. And we've got some great source material to work with.
Yeah.
It's a guidebook packed with practical advice on how to not just survive, but thrive in those first 100 days as a new leader.
So like a roadmap for setting yourself up for success right from the start.
Exactly.
What I find really interesting about this guidebook is that it goes beyond just like the general leadership advice.
Right.
It really gets specific about tailoring your approach to the unique context of your situation.
Because leading a tech startup through a merger is a whole different ball game than, let's say, managing a well-established team through a departmental restructure.
Exactly. It's like you wouldn't wear a swimsuit to a snowstorm, right?
Yeah, you've got to assess the terrain and dress accordingly.
Exactly. And that's why the first thing the guidebook stresses is identifying those potential risks.
Okay, so like those things that could trip you up right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So what kind of risks are we talking about here?
Well, they highlight three main areas.
Okay.
First, there are risks within the organization itself.
Hmm.
Things like a culture that's resistant to change or a lack of resources.
That makes sense.
Then you've got risks that are specific to the people you'll be leading,
Right.
like maybe low morale, skill gaps, or even just personality clashes.
Those are big ones.
Yeah. And finally, there are risks that are just inherent to the leadership position itself.
Like what?
Well, maybe the previous leader left some pretty big shoes to fill.
Right.
Or the expectations for the role aren't very clear.
So you're basically saying you need to do your homework.
Yes, before you even step into the role.
It's like being a detective,
Oh, I like that.
gathering clues to try and anticipate potential problems before they become full-blown disasters.
Exactly. And the guidebook recommends cultivating both scouts and insiders to help you with this.
Scouts and insiders.
Yeah, so think of your scouts as like your external advisors or mentors. Those people who can give you that fresh perspective on the organization.
Hmm.
Then your insiders are those trusted individuals within the company who can give you the inside scoop.
Ah, okay. So the unwritten rules, the power dynamics.
Yeah, the things you wouldn't find in an org chart.
It's about getting the full picture then, right?
Exactly.
Like both a panoramic view and the close-up details.
I like that. So once you've identified those potential risks, how do you actually tackle them?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the guidebook suggests this framework,
Okay.
and it's actually pretty intuitive.
All right. I'm intrigued.
Imagine you're assessing a company.
Okay.
What are some of the first things you'd want to know?
Well, I guess I'd want to understand their overall health,
Okay.
like their financial performance, their position in the market, who your competitors are.
Exactly. And that's the first C in this framework, the company itself.
Okay.
Then you want to look at your collaborator.
The people you'll be working with.
Exactly. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses?
Right.
Do they have the skills and the motivation to achieve the goals you're setting?
Because even the best strategy in the world will fall flat if you don't have the right people on board.
So true.
So we've got company and collaborators,
Next comes capability.
capability.
Yeah. Both your team's ability to actually execute the plan
Okay.
and your own capabilities as a leader.
So it's about being honest with yourself about what you and your team can realistically achieve.
Exactly. You can't forget about the competition either.
Right. Every organization has competitors, right?
Yes, whether it's other companies vying for market share
Yeah.
or internal teams competing for resources.
It's about knowing who you're up against
Yeah.
and anticipating their moves.
And finally, there's context,
Context like what?
like the big picture stuff, the economic climate, the regulatory environment, the technological landscape.
All those external factors that can really impact your ability to succeed.
Mhm.
So basically, it's about taking all of these elements into account
Yes,
and then prioritizing those risks that pose the biggest threat to your success.
that's it. And once you've prioritized those risks,
Yeah.
then you can start developing those mitigation strategies.
Okay, so what might that look like?
Well, it might involve building stronger relationships with key stakeholders or securing additional resources, maybe developing a communication plan to address potential resistance to change.
It's about being proactive, having a plan in place before those risks turn into roadblocks.
Exactly. But let's be honest, no matter how well you prepare,
Yeah.
there's always going to be that element of the unknown.
Especially when you're stepping into a new role.
Right. And that's why those first impressions are so crucial.
Okay, I'm listening.
The guidebook really stresses that your first day on the job,
Yeah.
It's not just about paperwork and awkward
It's
introductions.
more than that.
It's a golden opportunity to set the tone,
Okay.
to signal your priorities as a leader.
So you're saying it's not enough to just passively accept the schedule someone else created for you.
No, it's about taking control of the narrative right from day one.
I like that, taking control of the narrative.
And they offer some fascinating examples of leaders who did just that.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, so there's this story about Edgar.
Edgar.
He was a CEO who totally ditched the traditional meet and greet approach.
Interesting.
He spent his first days visiting customers instead.
Wow, that's bold.
He wanted to send a clear message that his leadership would be centered around understanding and meeting customer needs.
That's a powerful statement.
And then there's Thomas.
Okay, what did Thomas do?
So he was appointed the head of the Asian region for a major bank.
Okay.
But instead of starting his role in Singapore, where he was based,
Yeah?
he chose to begin in Tokyo.
Oh, I see where he's going with this.
Right, Tokyo was where the regional headquarters were located.
So it's about using location and symbolism to reinforce your message.
And to establish your presence?
Even something as seemingly insignificant as your attire can send a powerful message, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They contrast Victor, who showed up overdressed in a casual business setting in Japan,
Oh, no.
with David, who was underdressed in a company with a much more formal culture.
Both missteps.
Yeah, created awkwardness and sent the wrong signals.
It's a good reminder that communication goes beyond words.
Yeah,
We're constantly sending messages, whether we realize it or not.
especially in those early days.
Okay, so we've talked about analyzing risks and making those crucial first impressions.
Right.
But what about communication?
Communication.
Like, how do you effectively communicate your vision and get everyone on board with the changes you're leading?
Well, the guidebook really emphasizes that clear, consistent communication. It's not just a day one activity.
Right.
It's really the bedrock of effective leadership.
So it's about establishing those communication channels right from the get-go.
Right.
And making sure everyone feels informed and heard throughout the whole process.
Exactly, but it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay.
They suggest thinking about employee engagement in terms of 4 levels.
4 levels. Okay. I'm intrigued. What are they?
Loyal, contributing, compliant, and apathetic.
So like points on a spectrum of buy-in and motivation.
Exactly, and each level requires a slightly different communication strategy.
Okay, can you give me an example of how that might play out in a real-world scenario?
Absolutely. Let's say you're leading a team through a digital transformation.
Oh.
Your loyal employees, those who are already enthusiastic about embracing new technology,
Right.
they're your cheerleaders.
Yeah.
You can keep them engaged by involving them in the planning process, giving them opportunities to showcase their skills.
Okay.
But then you have those compliant employees.
The ones who are going along with the changes but maybe aren't thrilled about it.
Exactly. They might need more reassurance and support.
Okay.
So you want to focus your communication on addressing their concerns,
Right.
highlighting the benefits of the new technology for their specific roles.
So it's about meeting people where they are and tailoring your message accordingly.
Precisely. But how do you know which communication style to use for each person?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, the guidebook connects these engagement levels to what motivates people.
Okay.
Things like a sense of purpose.
Like altruism.
Exactly. The desire to master new skills.
Mastery.
And of course, self-interest.
Right, but it's not just about identifying their primary motivator, is it?
No.
It's also about understanding how their needs might evolve throughout the change process.
You got it. And they draw this fascinating parallel to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. How do you apply Maslow's hierarchy to, let's say, communicating a company-wide restructuring?
Think of it this way. Employees who are worried about job security,
Yeah.
that's their basic need level, right?
Right.
Your communication needs to directly address that fear.
Right.
By providing clear information about how their roles will be affected, what support will be provided, and how the restructuring will ultimately benefit them.
Makes sense.
Then you have employees who are driven by a sense of belonging.
Okay.
For them, you'd emphasize the importance of teamwork during this transition,
Right.
highlighting how their individual contributions are essential to the success of the restructuring.
Got it.
And for those at the top of the pyramid,
The ones seeking self-actualization.
exactly, your communication would highlight the bigger picture.
Okay.
You know, how does this restructuring contribute to the company's vision?
Hmm.
How does it create opportunities for personal and professional growth?
It's a really insightful way to look at it.
Right. It's not just about broadcasting a message.
Yeah.
It's about crafting a narrative that truly resonates with people's needs and aspirations.
And the guidebook takes it a step further, right?
They do. They suggest that a leader should be the chief storyteller for their organization.
No, that's where it gets really interesting for me. I've always been a big believer in the power of stories.
Me too.
They can inspire, motivate, even change hearts and minds.
They really can. And it's not just about telling your own stories either.
It's more than that.
It's about creating a culture of storytelling within your organization.
I like that.
Encouraging people to share their experiences, celebrate successes,
And even acknowledge failures.
so that everyone feels like they're part of a larger narrative.
They give a great example of this, right?
Yes. A leader named Peter.
Peter. Okay.
He inherited this deeply divided sales team.
Oh, no.
And he realized that the constant infighting stemmed from a lack of shared purpose.
Makes sense.
And this feeling that they were all competing against each other instead of working together.
So what did he do?
Well, he started highlighting their collective wins, sharing stories of individual successes
Right.
that contributed to the team's overall performance.
So he shifted the focus from competition to collaboration.
Exactly. He even acknowledged past failures, framing them as learning opportunities.
Rather than individual shortcomings.
Exactly.
So he used storytelling to create a more collaborative and supportive environment.
And it worked. By shifting the narrative, he was able to unify the team and significantly improve their performance.
That's such a powerful example of how effective communication can really transform a team's dynamics.
It really is.
And I think it brings us to a key theme here.
What's that?
The importance of building momentum and a sense of shared purpose.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the next crucial element the guidebook emphasizes: establishing a clear strategic focus.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
They introduce this concept they call the critical few.
The critical few.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Think of it this way. You've just stepped into this new leadership role.
Okay.
You're brimming with ideas, and there's like a million things you want to accomplish.
Yeah, you want to hit the ground running.
But if you try to tackle everything at once, you'll end up spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah, you won't achieve anything truly impactful.
Exactly.
So the critical few is about identifying those 2 or 3 urgent, high-impact actions.
Yes, that will drive the most significant progress towards your goals.
It's about laser focus.
Laser focus.
On the things that will make the biggest difference, not getting bogged down in the minutia.
You got it. And they use a really powerful analogy to illustrate this point.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine you're part of the mission control team for Apollo 13.
Oh, wow.
After the spacecraft experienced that catastrophic malfunction.
Yeah, a high-stakes situation.
They had a million things to worry about, but their critical few became crystal clear. Get those astronauts home alive.
Everything else became secondary.
Exactly.
Wow, what a powerful example. It really highlights the need for clarity and a singular focus.
Especially in high-stakes situations.
Okay, so while most of us, thankfully, won't be dealing with life or death scenarios,
Right.
the principle still applies, right?
It does.
So how do we define our own critical few?
Well, the guidebook provides a framework for doing just that.
Okay, lay it on me.
They suggest starting with a clear headline that captures the essence of what you're trying to achieve.
Like what?
Something like transform customer experience or boost team morale and productivity.
I love that. It's like a rallying cry that everyone can get behind.
Exactly.
So you start with that headline.
And then you delve deeper asking why.
Why? Like, why is this change necessary?
Exactly. What problem are you trying to solve? This helps you articulate your mission statement.
The driving force behind your efforts.
Right. And then you paint a picture of success.
Okay.
What does the organization look like once these changes are implemented? What positive impact will they have?
So that's your vision statement.
A vision statement, something for everyone to strive towards.
It's like providing a destination for their efforts, a clear picture of the future they're helping to create.
And the guidebook emphasizes that these elements, the headline, mission, vision,
Yeah,
they shouldn't be dictated from the top down.
right. It makes sense to involve the team in this process.
Ideally, they should be co-created.
You're much more likely to get buy-in and engagement if people feel like they've had a hand in shaping the direction.
Absolutely. And it's not just about those big picture elements
Well, I guess
either.
more.
You need to align on values as well.
Values, okay.
What guiding principles will shape your team's behavior and decision-making throughout this process?
It's about establishing an ethical foundation,
Yeah,
that shared understanding of what's right and wrong.
exactly. Then you get into the nitty-gritty of defining specific, measurable goals, outlining your high-level strategy.
Right.
breaking that strategy down into an actionable plan with timelines and responsibilities.
So you're creating a roadmap for success,
A roadmap for success, but one that's been co-created with the team.
ensuring everyone is on board and understands their role in achieving those shared goals.
Right, and throughout this process,
Yeah.
it's crucial to be mindful of your team's operating style.
Okay, their operating style, like how they work together,
Yeah, how do you make decisions? How do you communicate?
how you resolve conflict.
It's about establishing those norms and processes that will enable effective collaboration and execution.
They share a story about a leader named Harold, right?
Yeah.
Who used a workshop to align his team on their critical few.
Yeah, they spent time brainstorming those big picture goals, identifying their shared values,
Okay.
and then co-creating a plan to achieve those goals.
And how did it go?
The results are almost immediate.
Really?
Team morale skyrocketed, productivity increased.
Wow.
They were able to tackle challenges with a renewed sense of purpose and collaboration.
That's a great example of the power of structured collaboration and a shared vision.
It really is. And while co-creation is presented as like the ideal approach,
Right.
the guidebook acknowledges that it's not always feasible.
It's not.
No. They suggest other methods like telling, selling, testing, and consulting.
Each with its own pros and cons, I imagine.
Exactly. The key is to choose the approach that best fits your context and team dynamics.
Okay, so we've analyzed the risks. We've established our strategic focus. We're communicating effectively.
Yeah.
But how do we translate all that into tangible action and results?
That's where the next section comes in.
Okay, so let's move on then.
We'll be diving into driving execution effectiveness.
So we've got our strategic focus all figured out.
Right, those critical few.
But how do we actually put those plans into action? How do we start seeing some results?
Well, that's where this concept of milestone management comes in.
Also management.
Yeah, the source is presented as like the bridge between a great plan and actual progress.
Okay.
It's about creating a system that not only tracks deadlines, but also fosters accountability, clear communication, and a collaborative approach to problem solving.
So it's not just about checking boxes, but about creating a framework for effective execution.
Exactly. And they lay out this 5-step process to make it happen.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are the 5 steps?
All right, so first up is preparation.
Preparation.
Think of it as setting the stage.
Okay.
This is where you gather all the necessary information, assign roles and responsibilities, and
Right.
make sure everyone knows how to communicate effectively.
So laying the groundwork for success before you even start tackling those milestones.
Exactly. Then comes reporting.
Reporting.
This is where each team member provides updates on their progress, flags any roadblocks they've hit, and highlights any areas where they might need support.
So creating a regular feedback loop, making sure everyone's on the same page, and communicating openly.
The sources are big on structured reporting,
Oh,
like sticking to a schedule and keeping those reporting times concise.
makes sense. No one wants to be stuck in a meeting that drags on forever.
Right. It's about respecting everyone's time and keeping the focus on actionable insights.
So we've got preparation, reporting,
Next comes prioritizing.
prioritizing.
Now that you've got all those reports, it's time to identify those burning issues that need immediate attention.
So making those tough calls about where to focus your energy and resources.
Exactly. And the sources highlight that this shouldn't be a solo mission for the leader.
Right. It should.
Involving the team in this prioritization process really helps foster that sense of shared ownership and responsibility.
So it's not just about delegating tasks, but about empowering the team to contribute to those strategic decisions.
Now, once you've got your priorities straight,
Yeah.
it's time for problem solving.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
This is where those plans really start to take shape, moving from ideas to tangible actions.
How do they recommend approaching problem solving?
They provide a really practical framework for collaborative problem solving,
Okay.
emphasizing the importance of starting with the person who raised the issue and their proposed solution.
So empowering people to not just identify problems, but to also be part of the solution.
Exactly. It's about fostering a proactive, solution-oriented mindset.
I like that.
From there, the team works together to really get a clearer picture of the situation.
Okay.
Pinpoint obstacles, brainstorm ideas, and test potential solutions.
Seems like a very structured yet collaborative approach.
And finally, you've got closing the loop.
Closing the loop.
This ensures that the meeting outcomes actually translate into concrete actions.
So those action items don't just get lost in the shuffle after the meeting's over.
You communicate the decisions made, update any relevant plans, and make sure everyone knows what they need to do next.
It's all about closing that feedback loop and maintaining momentum.
Right. And it involves documenting decisions, communicating those to everyone involved, and putting systems in place to ensure those actions are actually taken.
So it sounds like milestone management is a pretty versatile framework then.
It is. The sources provide examples of how it's been used successfully in various situations,
Like what?
even beyond leading teams, like managing a merger or streamlining board meetings.
So it's not just for leading a team.
At its heart, it's really about clear structure, communication, and collaborative problem solving.
Okay, so we've covered a lot on milestone management.
We have.
But let's circle back to those early wins we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah, those are important.
How do they fit into this process of driving execution?
Early wins are those quick, visible successes
Right.
that really inject energy and confidence into the change process.
I like to think of them as fuel for the team's motivation.
Exactly. And they're essential for building credibility, especially in those early stages of a new leadership role.
Right, like with Rhonda.
Oh, yeah, Ron.
Her perceived slow start almost derailed her leadership before it even began.
Early wins can make all the difference in shaping perceptions.
So how do you choose the right early wins?
Well, it's not about picking the easiest task.
Right.
It's about being strategic.
Okay.
They recommend focusing on initiatives that are impactful, achievable within a reasonable time frame, and align with the overall strategic goals.
And they should also model the desired behaviors and collaborative spirit you're trying to cultivate within the team.
You got it. A win for one person shouldn't come at the expense of the team's success.
So what happens once you've achieved those early wins?
Well, you got to celebrate those successes. Make them visible.
Okay.
Recognize the contributions of the team. Use them to reinforce the positive changes that are taking place.
It's about creating that positive feedback loop where success breeds more success.
And sometimes choosing quick, impactful solutions over painstakingly crafting the perfect solution can be the more strategic approach.
So done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to build momentum and show tangible progress.
Especially in those early stages.
Okay, so we've got those early wins, we're building momentum,
Right.
but how do we make sure these changes aren't just a flash in the pan?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do we make those changes stick for the long haul?
That's where we move into the final section of our deep dive, leadership continuity and sustainability.
Okay, let's dive into that then. I'm ready to hear about how to make these changes last. All right, so we've talked about navigating those initial challenges as a new leader, driving execution, and even celebrating those early wins.
Right, setting ourselves up for success.
But how do we make sure these positive changes we've worked so hard for actually become part of the organization's culture?
You're talking about making those changes stick.
Yeah, like how do we create lasting change?
That's where this idea of leadership continuity and sustainability really comes in.
It's about building a foundation that can weather those inevitable storms.
And keep those positive changes moving forward.
Okay, so what are the key ingredients for building that kind of foundation?
Well, the sources emphasize that it starts with you, the leader.
Okay, with me.
It's about taking a step back and honestly reflecting on your own leadership style.
So like an honest self-assessment.
What's working well? Where are your blind spots? Are there areas where you need to grow and develop?
So it's about self-awareness and that continuous improvement.
Right, and not being afraid to ask for help or seek out guidance when you need it.
Because no leader is an island.
Right, exactly. And it's also about recognizing that leadership isn't a solo act.
Okay, so it's about the team then.
It's about investing in your team's development as well.
Creating a culture of learning and growth.
Providing opportunities for professional development, even implementing a succession plan.
To ensure a smooth transition of leadership down the line.
Right, so that your team is empowered to step up and take on those leadership roles.
Both now and in the future.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual development either.
It's more than that.
It's about building systems and processes that support the long-term sustainability of those changes you've worked so hard to implement.
Okay, I'm with you.
So that might involve refining your performance management systems, implementing regular talent reviews.
And even developing contingency plans.
For those what-if scenarios.
It's like weaving those changes into the fabric of the organization, making them an integral part of how things get done.
You got it.
Now, they also highlight the importance of regular check-ins, right?
Yes. And not just with your team, but with yourself and those key stakeholders who have a vested interest in your success.
So scheduling those strategic and operational reviews.
Creating opportunities to step back, assess progress, make adjustments.
And plan for the future.
It's about staying agile and adaptable, you know?
Making sure you're not just clinging to a plan that's no longer serving you.
Exactly. But let's be real, you can't forget about those unexpected events.
Oh yeah, those curveballs that life throws at you.
No matter how well you plan, there will always be those unexpected wrenches thrown into the works.
So true.
The sources actually suggest categorizing those unexpected events by their potential impact and duration.
Okay, so like a way to assess those curveballs.
Right. For those minor, temporary hiccups, they advise staying focused on your current priorities,
Okay.
adapting as needed, and not letting those small setbacks derail your progress.
But for those major lasting changes,
The ones that fundamentally shift the landscape.
they recommend a more significant response.
Exactly.
So knowing when to stay the course and when to pivot, that's a critical leadership skill.
Couldn't agree more. And they outline a three-step approach for handling those major lasting changes.
Okay, what's the first step?
Preparation.
So being proactive rather than reactive.
It's about anticipating potential challenges, developing contingency plans, and establishing clear communication protocols.
For those just-in-case scenarios.
It's like having a fire drill for your organization.
I love that analogy.
You might not ever have to use it.
But if you do.
You'll be glad you practiced.
Okay, so preparation, then what?
Then, when those unexpected events actually happen, it's all about execution.
Putting those contingency plans into action.
Making those tough calls, adapting as needed, and keeping everyone informed throughout the whole process.
It's about leading with clarity and fostering that sense of stability.
Even amidst the chaos.
And what's the final step?
Reflection. Once the dust has settled, it's crucial to take a moment to reflect on the experience.
Okay.
What worked well? What could have been done better? What did you learn?
So turning those challenges into opportunities for growth and continuous improvement.
Exactly. The sources even have a template for a 100-hour plan.
A 100-hour plan.
It outlines those critical actions you need to take in those first few days of a crisis.
So it's about having that structured approach for those high-pressure situations.
Right, when time is of the essence.
Now, they also use Tim Cook's leadership at Apple as an example, don't they?
Yes. It's a great example of how to not just navigate a transition, but build upon a successful predecessor's legacy.
And in the face of some pretty significant challenges.
Especially after stepping into the shoes of a visionary like Steve Jobs.
It's remarkable how Cook didn't try to become a carbon copy of Jobs.
Right.
He recognized that authenticity is crucial,
He brought his own unique leadership style to the table.
while still honoring the company's core values and that innovative spirit.
It's about respecting the past while also looking to the future.
One of the things that really stands out about Cook's leadership is his ability to empower his team.
And delegate effectively. He built this culture of trust and collaboration.
Surrounding himself with talented individuals.
Who could excel in their respective areas.
So he wasn't trying to be a superhero leader who does everything themselves.
No way. It's about recognizing the strengths of your team.
And empowering them to shine.
Cook was also very strategic in his approach to change.
Meaning what?
He didn't try to revolutionize everything overnight.
He focused on those critical few.
That would have the biggest impact. Choosing his battles wisely.
And making sure those changes were aligned with Apple's core values.
Because change for the sake of change is meaningless, right?
All right, it has to be grounded in that deeper purpose.
And Cook was also a master communicator.
Keeping those lines of communication open with employees, customers, and investors.
Building trust and alignment.
It's about making sure everyone is on the same page.
And understands the why behind those decisions.
And let's not forget, Cook also demonstrated incredible resilience.
He faced his fair share of challenges during his time at Apple.
Market fluctuations, product flops, even personal health issues.
But he always found a way to bounce back.
And lead the company to even greater heights.
It's about having that grit and determination.
To keep moving forward even when things get tough.
So Cook's leadership really provides a compelling example of how to build that foundation for sustained success.
It does.
It's about continuous improvement, strategic planning, empowering your team.
Effective communication, resilience, and a deep commitment to the company's core values. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from analyzing those initial risks to building systems for long-term sustainability.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
And it's clear that leading through change is no walk in the park.
It's complex, it's challenging.
But it can be incredibly rewarding, both for the leader and the organization.
Absolutely. These sources have provided us with some truly invaluable tools and insights.
I think one of the key takeaways for me is that leadership isn't about having all the answers.
It's not.
It's about asking the right questions.
Being curious, adaptable.
And always willing to learn and grow.
Well said. As we wrap up, I'd like to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
Leadership is not a title or a position. It's a way of being.
The way it be
It's about showing up every day with courage, compassion,
and a deep commitment to making a positive impact.
on the world around you.
Well, that's a powerful message to end on. Thanks for joining us for this insightful deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel empowered to lead with even greater purpose, clarity, and impact.
Until next time.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading.